Good morning, dear student. Here is Moses. Today we are concentrated on questions and answer, and we are going to focus on June 2010. And the question we are going to focus with will be under the scramble for an annexation of Cameroon. Good. Now let's go straight to the point with the question. To what extent did the Germano-Duala Treaty of July 1884 meet the aspiration of Cameroonians? Good. Now, with the interpretation of this question, it is not complicated, right? It is a two-sided question centered in the terms of the Germano-Duala Treaty. The terms that met the aspiration or the terms that satisfy the aspiration of the Cameroonians should be examined for the first part, and the terms that never satisfy the aspiration or never met the term for the second part. So I repeat, it is a two-sided question centered on the terms of the Germano-Duala Treaty. Terms that satisfy the Cameroonians should be examined for the first part, and the terms that never satisfy the Cameroonians should be examined for the second part. After examining the interpretation of the question, we move now to examine the introduction of the question. Good. Britain, France, and Germany scrambled for the annexation of Cameroon, but Germany successfully annexed the territory when she concluded the Germano-Duala Treaty with the Cameroon traditional rulers on July 1884. In signing the Germano-Duala Treaty, the Cameroon Coastal King had laid down their proposal in a document known as the King's Memorandum, which was an expression of their wishes. This includes the respect of the native right of middleman monopoly of trade, the respect of native land, native laws and customs. The Germano-Duala Treaty of July 1884 met the aspiration of the Cameroonians to an extent, but nevertheless some of the aspirations were either ignored or modified as analyzed below.
It is by these words that the close to 200 freshmen of the St. Austin's Medical Bilingual Higher Institute, SAMHI, made history as the second batch of students to be matriculated into this institution.
I recognize that the practice which studies the art of medicinal practices is a privilege with which comes considerable responsibilities.
The mandatory events taking place at the esplanade of the Yaoundé Sixth Council intervenes at a time when the world is facing a shortage in medical practitioners.
The plan of action is not only to have 6 million nurses, but to have 6 million nurses who are capable, who can save life at any moment.
It was an opportunity for key speakers to tell students to make use of the facilities of the prestigious institution, described as emblematic in the medical sector, to become the best and effect the needed impact on the society and its health system.
And that is why we incorporate driving with medicals at St. Austin so that they can be outstanding. They can save lives, not only at the hospital or administering drugs, but by carrying a patient in that patient's car to the hospital if the patient is unconscious.
The event was equally time enough to present the magnificent campus of the University Institute and Medical Complex, described as a unique place for the training of students.
Biomedical institution that trains students in the biomedical departments. As of now, they train in the nursing, the midwifery, the medical lab sciences, dentists, pharmacy technologists, physiotherapists, and radiologists.
Speaking on behalf of the Minister of Higher Education, Professor Ongba noted that this matriculation ceremony was an eloquent testimony of Dr. Bicheline Chongwan's love for Cameroon and her desire to assist President Paul Biya's vision to make Cameroon an emergent nation by 2035 through quality training. The event, which was attended by students of various other institutions, saw a medal award to teachers and students who distinguished themselves in various fields.
I was hoping that this year will be the best because I've tried to improve on my ability, but I'm still the second.
Located in Jouvence, Yaoundé 6, the St. Austin's Medical Bilingual Higher Institute is the brainchild of Dr. Chongwan Bicheline Naya, and it trains students in 7 medical fields, amongst which nursing, midwifery, radiology, medical laboratory and dentistry. Free driving and German plus Italian languages are equally part of the SAMHI training. The university and teaching hospital equally offer international scholarships, free soft copy textbooks, amongst many others.
First part of this question. The Germano-Duala Treaty of July 1884 met the aspiration of the Cameroonians in the following ways. One of the aspirations of the Cameroonians was that land should remain the private property of the Cameroonians. This was respected because the final draft of the treaty provided for ownership or native ownership of land. This was in line with the aspiration of the Cameroonians. Furthermore, the Cameroonians also wanted that native custom and tradition should be respected, especially their traditional system of marriages. This was equally respected since it was included in the final draft of the treaty. Another aspiration of the Cameroonians was that early treaty of friendship and commerce with other European powers should be respected. This was also included in the Germano-Duala Treaty. Again, the aspiration that annual payment be given to the king as in the past was respected to an extent because the king received the proceeds of annexation. Finally, the Cameroonians returned the right to keep domestic animals as was proposed in the king's memorandum. The second part, the Germano-Duala Treaty failed to meet or certify the aspiration of the Cameroonians in the following way. The final draft of the treaty failed to recognize the native right of middleman trade monopoly. As such, the Cameroonians lost their middleman role in trade. This was contrary to their aspiration. In fact, this trade monopoly was the source of livelihood and income for the chiefs. Again, the treaty failed to certify the aspirations of the Cameroonians because the final draft of the treaty handed the right of administration, legislation, and sovereignty to the German firms. Consequently, these rights formerly controlled by the kings were taken away from them. Moreover, the treaty violated territorial limits of the Cameroonian kings. By the treaty, the name Cameroon was geographically determined, that is, the area situated on Cameroon River, that is River Wuri, between Bimbia in the north and Kwakwa in the south, and up to latitude 410 north. The treaty never certified or met the aspiration of the Cameroonians because it was not considered a treaty by many Cameroonians, but an accord between some crown Duala prince and some private German traders. Besides, the Duala chiefs who signed the treaty did not represent all the Cameroonians. Okay, to end, there are various WhatsApp groups available for both history and the St. Austin Medical Institute that was advertised above. If you really need to know about the institution, you can contact the following number. They are going to give you a brief and detailed information concerning the institution. And believe me, this institution is very, very good for your continuation of studies after A levels. Furthermore, even though land according to the treaty was to remain the private property of the native, on the contrary, only the land of the towns and villages was to remain native land. The chief had opted to control both occupied and unoccupied land, but the Germano-Duala Treaty exposed uncultivated land to German expropriation. This never met the aspiration of the Cameroonians. In addition, the Germano-Duala Treaty never met the aspiration of the Cameroonians in that it omitted cause of no punishment or flogging without crime committed, and the cause on no duties on livestock. The powers of the kings were limited, and they were constantly flogged to make them loyal to German authority. The German could not also exclude duties on livestock because they needed revenue for German administration. This only helped to do what? This only helped to make the native resist the Germans. Also, the treaty reserved the right of the third party, even though earlier treaty of friendship and commerce with other European powers were to be respected. This ran contrary to the aspiration of the Cameroonians, since the territory could not be ceded to a third party. We have now the conclusion. To conclude, even though some of the terms of the Germano-Duala Treaty met with the aspiration of the Cameroonians, it is worth noting that almost all the terms were never implemented. The non-implementation of the terms of the treaty led to forced labor, expropriation of native land, native resistance, increased native hatred for the Germans, and consequently, during the First World War, they entered the war against the Germans.